Imagine a supreme leader vanishes during a massive regional war, and his official handlers claim he's perfectly fine, while the rest of the world suspects he might be missing a leg.
Yeah, it sounds like something straight out of Thriller, honestly.
It really does. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are untangling a huge stack of freshly leaked military manuals, internal memos, and urgent intelligence assessments from May 2026.
Right, and these documents paint a pretty intense picture.
They do. We are talking about Iran in absolute freefall, a silent military coup, an economy that is weeks away from total collapse, and a regime playing this really deadly game of hide-and-seek behind its own citizens.
And just to set the stage here, our goal today is to pull the raw facts out of all this data. We have U.S. intelligence reports sitting right next to Iranian state media updates.
Exactly.
So we aren't here to endorse any political spin or, take a side in the conflict. We just want to untangle the reality on the ground and understand how this crisis is pushing the whole region to the brink.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it all starts with a very conspicuous empty chair at the top.
The missing supreme leader.
Right. Mojtaba Khamenei. He was named the new supreme leader after his father, Ali Khamenei, was killed in an airstrike in February 2026. But since that strike, nobody has actually seen him.
Not in public, no.
And if you look at Iranian state media, their official protocol chief, a guy named Mazahar Hosseini, keeps putting out these bizarrely specific updates.
Oh, yeah. Medical reports.
Yeah. He says Mojtaba has a healed back, a twisted ankle, and like a small crack behind his ear. They are absolutely insisting he is in perfect health.
But then you pull the Western intelligence reports, and you get a completely different reality.
It's night and day.
It really is. Western intel assesses that he suffered severe burns across his face, his torso, his arm. There are even these unverified accounts suggesting he lost a leg and needs a prosthetic.
Wow.
Yeah. But honestly, the physical injuries are almost secondary to the operational reality here. The intelligence shows he is entirely isolated, like extreme security paranoia.
I mean, he even missed the major Nowruz address, right? The Persian New Year. That's a huge deal.
Exactly. And now he communicates almost exclusively through hand-delivered couriers.
It's like a corporate CEO vanishing during a hostile takeover, and the PR department just keeps releasing written memos while the board of directors secretly runs the company.
That is a great way to look at it.
But I want to push back on this a bit,
Yeah.
because some U.S. intelligence suggests he might actually be actively shaping war strategy in secret from a bunker. Is he truly incapacitated, or is this just a really extreme security measure?
Well, that split in the intelligence tells us a lot about the fog of war right now. Some analysts do argue he remains mentally sharp and is, dictating terms through those couriers.
Right.
But the ambiguity itself is the real red flag. In Iran's specific system of government, absolute power demands absolute visibility.
Because he's the ultimate authority.
Exactly. The public reverence, the fear, the unquestioned authority, all of that evaporates when you become a ghost passing written notes through guards. It creates this massive vacuum at the very top.
And nature abhors a vacuum.
Always. Especially when there is a highly organized, heavily armed group standing right next to it.
You're talking about the military. Because with the supreme leader missing in action, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, they've essentially formed a military council to run things.
Right. They placed a strict security cordon around Mojtaba Khamenei.
And that cordon works two ways, doesn't it? It protects him, but it also controls what he sees.
Precisely. They control the flow of information. Civilian government reports are actively being blocked from even reaching his desk. The civilian government is being sidelined in real time.
Yeah, the details on this are wild. The new chief of the IRGC, Ahmad Vahidi, literally vetoed the elected president's choice for intelligence minister.
Just blocked it completely.
Yep. And then they forced the appointment of their own guy, Mohammad Bagher Zulgadar, to run the Supreme National Security Council. So day-to-day operations are just being managed by military generals and the parliament speaker now.
What's fascinating here is that analysts have a term for this. They call it Khameneism.
Khamenei.
Yeah, this wasn't an accident. And it isn't just a temporary wartime measure either. For decades, the regime systematically concentrated power into the hands of hardline military institutions.
So they built a failsafe.
Exactly. The whole state apparatus was designed so that if the civilian government ever pushed for democratic reform, or if the supreme leader faltered, the military would just automatically absorb all the power. They made democratic reform structurally impossible.
That makes total sense. And it really highlights the irony of the current situation. I mean, you have the elected president of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian, going on live television and issuing a public order to stop attacks on neighboring countries.
A direct order from the president.
Right. And immediately after he speaks, the military just ignores him and launches another wave of drone strikes. So the civilian government is basically just a facade right now.
It's window dressing. But running a state like that, prioritizing a massive regional war over everything else requires a lot of money.
And that brings us to the economy, which is just an absolute free fall. The U.S. military blockade has completely choked them. There are 70 tankers just parked and frozen right now.
That is about $13 billion in oil exports just sitting uselessly in the water.
$13 billion. And oil revenue usually funds everything in Iran. Now it has plummeted to just 5% of the national budget. So the government panicked and hiked taxes by 60%.
But a tax hike doesn't do much when the underlying economy is evaporating. President Pezeshkian warned openly that the country could face total economic collapse in 3 to 4 weeks without a ceasefire.
3 weeks. That is terrifying for the average citizen. We're looking at triple-digit inflation here. Estimates put it between 105 and 115%.
Yeah, people are in absolute survival mode. Government workers haven't seen a paycheck in months.
And people are walking up to ATMs in major cities, and the machines are just empty or broken.
Cash is literally disappearing.
Right. So the central bank started printing a massive new 10 million rial banknote. Just to give some context, the highest bill they had before this crisis was 100,000 rials.
Wow. So they went from 100,000 to 10 million.
Yeah. When your government prints a bill 100 times larger than the previous maximum, your money isn't money anymore, it's just paper.
It is the textbook definition of hyperinflation. And it triggers something economists call de facto dollarization.
Where everyone just switches to U.S. dollars.
Exactly. Over 1 year, the value of the U.S. dollar shot from 800,000 rials to over 1.4 million. The citizens are completely abandoning their national currency.
The intelligence reports mention this thing called the $5 pizza index, which I find really fascinating.
It's a perfect analogy.
It really is. Basically, a pizza shop in Tehran realized the rial was crashing so fast they just pegged their prices to the U.S. dollar. So a standard $5 pizza went from 5 million rials to 8.6 million rials almost overnight.
Just to buy a pizza.
Right. And now, used cars, apartment rentals, groceries, they are all being priced in USD. But I want to weigh the overlapping forces here. Because U.S. officials claim the Iranian regime is starving its own people to prolong the war.
While Iranian officials argue the U.S. blockade is what's crushing them.
Exactly. So, looking at the facts impartially, how do these two forces actually interact?
Well, impartially speaking, the U.S. blockade is the undeniable external trigger here. It severed the trade routes and wiped out the national revenue.
Right, that's the $13 billion stuck in the water.
Yeah, but the IRGC's refusal to shift funds away from the war effort is the internal catalyst. They have this shrinking pie of money, and they are feeding the military instead of the central bank.
Leaving the civilians with nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this dollarization trend, the pizza shop pricing things in U.S. dollars, it represents a psychological point of no return. When a citizen prices their lunch in the currency of the country blockading them, it means they have completely lost faith in their own nation's economy.
That is a brutal breaking point. But the crisis for everyday Iranians isn't just economic. Here's where it gets really interesting and a lot more dangerous. The IRGC's tactics are thrusting citizens into direct physical danger.
You're talking about the leaked 33-page manual.
Yes. The manual titled Instruction for Identification, Maintenance, and Use of Positions. It details a military strategy they call the Mosaic Defense.
Right. And Mosaic Defense sounds like this highly sophisticated, high-tech military grid.
But it's really not.
No, it's not. What it actually means is systematically hiding deadly weapons inside civilian neighborhoods. They use ordinary infrastructure, schools, community sports centers, industrial sheds, warehouses as cover.
They are actively preparing and launching missiles from these places. They even disguise the missile launchers to look like ordinary white delivery trucks.
Just blending right into daily traffic.
Exactly. Imagine walking out of your local gym and there's a white delivery truck parked outside. It looks totally normal. But inside, it's an active missile platform. Doesn't that make the entire neighborhood a target?
It absolutely does. And this brings up the grim reality of international law. Normally, a school or a sports center has protected status under the laws of war. You cannot strike it.
Right.
But the IRGC knows they're fighting an adversary with overwhelmingly superior air power. Their calculus is that the only way to preserve their missiles is to embed them into civilian geography. But when you repurpose a civilian building for a military launch, it loses its protected status.
It becomes a legitimate military target.
Yes, they are actively transferring the deadly risk off of their own military bases onto the backs of unsuspecting citizens.
Wow. So you have an economy surviving on empty ATMs, a military hiding behind school buildings, and a phantom leader. The obvious solution here is a ceasefire, right? Stop the bleeding.
You would think so.
But diplomatic efforts are completely paralyzed. Talks in Islamabad have stalled. The U.S. is maintaining the blockade and demanding a total end to Iran's nuclear ambitions.
And a major hurdle there is that U.S. officials are fundamentally confused about who even holds the power to negotiate for Iran right now.
Yeah, the intelligence notes that the U.S. vice president actually had to reach out to partners in the Gulf just to ask who was in charge in Tehran.
Which is wild. You can't negotiate if you don't know who is actually running the country.
Right. Parliament Speaker Ghalibaf did eventually show up to lead the talks, but U.S. officials noted that Iran just repeated their initial demands. No compromise at all.
Meanwhile, Iranian diplomats argue the U.S. betrayed diplomacy by attacking during past negotiations. Former diplomats are warning this deadlock could drag on for months.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Why should someone sitting at home care about a stalled meeting in Pakistan?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, the stakes are global. This conflict heavily disrupts the Strait of Hormuz.
The major energy choke point.
Exactly. A huge percentage of the world's oil flows through that narrow strip of water. A prolonged deadlock means fewer tankers, spiking insurance rates, and huge disruptions to global energy markets.
Which means higher prices at the gas pump and the grocery store for everyone.
Yes. And more dangerously, it risks dragging multiple neighboring nations into a wider, uncontrolled regional war.
It's a powder keg. Let's just briefly recap the intense journey we've been on today. We are looking at a regime with a phantom leader, where generals are actively sidelining elected presidents.
A quiet military takeover.
Yeah, we have a currency that is hyperinflating so fast they are printing 10 million febrile notes to buy a pizza, and a military actively turning civilian gyms into missile targets just to survive.
Which brings up a really profound final thought for everyone to mull over.
What's that?
Well, the Islamic Republic was structurally engineered by its founders to survive external threats. They built all these layers of military fail-safes to withstand an invasion or an airstrike campaign.
Right, the Khameneism we talked about.
Exactly. But when an economy collapses from within, and a military actively hides behind the very citizens it claims to protect, where is the breaking point?
That's the real question.
Does the ultimate downfall of this regime come from an external missile strike, or simply from the accumulated exhaustion of a trapped population that finally has nothing left to lose?
Wow, that is the ultimate test of a failing state. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the official narratives, keep exploring the facts on your own, because as we saw today, sometimes the most dangerous threat isn't an army marching toward the border, it's the delivery truck parked right outside your house. Catch you next time.